Welcome everybody to another episode of the iSH Presents podcast series. It's great to be in Workington today in one of the premier manufacturers of the region, McMenon Engineering. McMenon's specialise in flow and temperature measurement equipment, and they operate across a multitude of sectors including nuclear, oil and gas, pharmaceuticals, food and beverage and more. They also work internationally and are a leading light and an example to the region. Thank you so much, Anand, for being with us today. It's great to see you.
Thank you, Miranda. Thank you for having me. And thank you, iSH.
No problem at all. So, can you explain to us exactly what we mean by flow and temperature measurements and what it is that you really do here at McMenon Engineering?
Sure. As it says, it's quite simple. We measure, it's industrial flow measurement that we do, predominantly in the energy sector, and along with that, nuclear, chemical, water, food and beverage, pharmaceuticals, all sorts of industries we focus on. So it is effectively measuring the flow of fluids or gases which goes through pipelines. We specialize in what is called as differential pressure flow measurement. So that's something which for over 75 years, now coming up to 78 years, I must say, that this site in Workington has been specializing in. So in layman's terms, measuring flow using DP flow technology, but we also measure industrial temperature. So about 10% of our products are temperature measurement products too.
So why is measuring flow and temperature important to companies, to your clients?
Well, effectively, we need to measure how much material is passing through a pipeline, right? So that's basically like, so if you went into a petrol station, you need to measure how much petrol or diesel goes into your tank. It's as simple as that. But there are various technologies that they use to measure this flow, and we use the differential pressure flow technology.
Okay, great. And I understand there's like 70 years of heritage in this business. Could you give us a little bit of a kind of potted history and a journey of how you got to this point?
Yeah, that's my favorite talking point, I must admit. It all started with a company called Fisher & Porter back in 1947. It was started off close to Maryport, if I recall correctly. And then after about 10 years, in about 1957, they came onto this site. So Fisher & Porter was the original name of the business. Still, people refer to this business site as Fisher & Porter, despite ownership changes. So in summary, for about 50 years, Fisher & Porter owned this site and the business, and they were exporters too. And then they were acquired by another company. I can't recall the name just now, but that was a very brief stint, and then taken over by multinational corporation ABB. So ABB owned this business for about 20 years, and I acquired this business back in 2018 from ABB. So in total, this business in Cumbria has been for about 75, 79 years, I suppose it's coming up to. And we should soon be celebrating over 80 years as a business.
Amazing, amazing. And it must be a really successful business for a multinational ABB to have wanted to acquire it in the first place.
Absolutely, absolutely. It has taken various forms, I must admit. At one point in its heyday, I must admit, under Fisher & Porter, it was much larger business because they were focusing on other technologies too. It was not just flow and temperature. It included pressure, it included level measurement, and a whole host of other things too. But after a couple of acquisitions, the product range in this site, for business reasons, were evolved and reduced, I must admit. But when we took over the business in 2018, it was flow and temperature measurement, and we have continued specializing in those two areas. In addition to that, we have also evolved into a capability business too. So, for example, recently we have completed 2 major projects for Sellafield as part of the PPP, and those are essentially capability products. When I mean capability products, what I mean there is it's our fabrication, welding, machining capability that came to the fore. So that was working with the clients for their specifications. Mm-hmm. Whereas for our products, the flow and temperature products, we are subject matter experts in that one. We compete with billion-dollar enterprises. So if you ask me who our competition is, the names that come to my mind readily are billion-dollar enterprises. And this building, this business, right from concept to engineering to manufacturing to testing, all happens here. There are very few businesses of this size which do such concept to completion kind of work in our sector. And that's why I proudly say that we compete with the billion-dollar enterprises around the world.
And what an amazing story to be able to say that here in West Cumbria and Workington, we have a business that delivers such quality, such high quality, that it competes with those multi-billion pound businesses. That's amazing. So what kind of challenges do you face? What are the biggest challenges that you see ahead?
Now, technically, there are challenges, right? That we should, as a business, that is within our control, I'd say. How does the business evolve? What more can technology do? What kind of a role in evolving technology? All of those are challenges where any business would have similar businesses to us as well. In addition to this, some of the challenges which we have are beyond our control. Now, when I say that, we are an exporter. Roughly about 90% of our business is exports. We regularly export to over 50 countries worldwide. Our products are in 63 countries around the world. So that's the scale of business we're talking about. So talking about the West Cumbrian story, right? Can you imagine Workington and West Cumbria to, let's just say, Brisbane in Australia? We've supplied products to. So that wakes me up every morning feeling energized and saying, hey, what more can I do about that, right? But when you're talking about this scale, now this morning, the first thing I read was, where is the US dollar at? Right? Mm-hmm. Because it has a major impact on our business. Now, in a way, that makes me feel bigger than I am, because I consider myself in the medium-sized business. But what happens in the US dollar conversion rates is a real factor for a business like us. These are often beyond our control. To a certain extent, you can. You're talking about hedging and all of those things. We can to a certain extent. But the point I'm trying to make is, being an exporter, as much as it sounds nice, it also comes with the challenges which are unknown to you. You wake up one morning and you find those kind of challenges out there. So from a consistency point of view, it's quite hard from an exporting perspective. But for the size of business we are, that's why scaling this business is quite important. And I'll come to that in a minute. But just to finish off with the challenges, being a UK business at one point, and then still, it's a badge of quality, right? So when you say UK business, most often, people look at you and say, oh, well, that should be a quality business. Thankfully, that is still the case. And our quality hasn't diminished over the years. I'm talking about UK manufacturing in general. But what has improved is the quality of competition, right? So we are no longer competing with the likes of Germany, from Europe, to take as an example, or even Japan and South Korea, who are considered to be premium quality in Asia. We are now competing with countries like India, China, who through the years have not only improved their quality, but have also improved the investments in technology. Right? So these are real challenges for us from a cost perspective. Same quality, cost-wise, there's a significant difference. So then increasingly global clients are beginning to ask, why UK? And not necessarily in a negative light, but it's business at the end of the day. Everyone would ask that question. If we can acquire something, same quality, at a better price, why wouldn't, right? So this is a major challenge for businesses like ours, especially manufacturing businesses, which is a tough space to be in. So I don't want to sound too big and trying to be advising the government or things or anything like that. But in reality, we need to have an industrial strategy which helps, especially SMEs in the UK. Otherwise, the path is going to be really, really difficult. And it could also be a bridging strategy. I'm sorry, I'm probably taking longer
this is
to
really
answer that
interesting.
question, right? But I'm just in the flow, I suppose. An interim bridging strategy could be good. And what I mean by that is, with all the technological advancements we're having at the moment, right? Technology, we all talk about technology as an enabler, which it is. But technology is a leveler too. So if you take a country like China, for example, or India, for example, why are they able to provide it at a better price? One of the most obvious things is the people cost. But when you take a technology cost, it is not necessarily that different. For example, a CNC machine or a robot, which somebody has to acquire from Japan, they're not going to get any cheaper in India as opposed to the UK. So predominantly the difference lies in the people cost as such, right? But when we invest more in technology and more of the countries then start using similar technologies, this is where I feel technology will become a leveler. Then we are entering into a space of creative ideas. Who is more innovative? How are they thinking? What kind of solutions are they coming up with, right? This is what I mean by technology being a leveler. Sure. At that point, again, we are in a space where we are competing with all the countries around the world. But up until then, if people cost and those cost bases are going to be a significant difference, I think in the UK we need to be very aware of that and ensure companies like ourselves or even larger companies are able to compete up until then and not lose that space.
And that's really exactly why iSH is doing what iSH is doing in terms of manufacturing cluster, robotics cluster. It's about identifying that capability in Cumbria and saying, how can we make sure that these fantastic world-class businesses continue to be at the cutting edge, at the forefront of innovation, so that we continue to compete and we continue to be successful on that world stage? It's absolutely about that. And I absolutely hear what you're saying about, delivering that message back to government. We need to be supporting our local businesses, our SMEs, and ensuring that that UK quality brand, that badge of we are a UK manufacturer, keeps putting us at the forefront of the market, of the industry internationally.
Absolutely. I've been following some of the developments at iSH, and I must admit, connecting it to the West Cumbrian space as such, for I'm trying to explain it. I'm trying to explain better. But in West Cumbria, there is so much of a reliance on nuclear, or at least there is a perception there is so much reliance on nuclear. Fact of the matter is that there are other industries, right? And our manufacturing itself is a good example that nuclear is a very small part of our business. And then there is, of course, we are the gateway to the Lake District in a way. Agriculture is still very much part of our economy. So the innovations in all these sectors, could play a large role in improving West Cumbria as such. Now, from an iSH perspective, the fact that you are creating an industrial cluster of digital, industrial cluster of robotics, these are things which I'm following and I'm saying, what can I learn from that? What can I bring in here? And we had a delegation about a year or so back. We had a delegation from Japan, which was brought to us by iSH.
Right.
Now, it's fantastic to know that, the Japanese, who are the forefront of technology, you'd think they know it all, want you to come here and understand how are we contributing to the nuclear technology as well. Now, these are things which, connecting to my ambition, I'm saying, there's a parallel between West Cumbria being, punching above their weight. There's a parallel with McMenon punching above its weight. So I'm just thinking and I'm trying to see, are there parallels to be drawn as such? And talking about parallels, in parallel, if the government can then support organizations like iSH and organizations like McMenon and other SMEs to just hold their breath underwater for that while until that leveling happens, that would be a win-win situation.
Agreed. I just want to come back to the bit you were talking about at the beginning around capability and your capability and how that's now something that you're delivering to customers. What it sounds like from what you've said is that doing the work that you've been doing to produce the equipment that you produce has resulted in you also developing some great capability here in this facility. So can you talk a little bit about the team here, the people that you have here and those skills? Because I know, there's a lot of talk and a lot of reports and studies that have been done around the skills that we need, not only in Cumbria, but across the country and around the world, really. The sort of some of the skills that you've talked about there, welding and so on, are the skills that we're desperate for, that we don't have enough of. So it'd be great to hear about some of that.
We as a business are in a unique position in that when I said from concept to completion, from our capabilities point of view as well, we actually have have the capabilities here and the infrastructure here to do that. So, for example, to manufacture one of our products, you will need it to be the concept created in your head. So we have some fantastic technical folk who do that. We actually specify it for clients too. This, unlike a machine shop or a fabrication shop, with all due respect to them, they do great work. But most often, a client would come with very clear specifications to say this is what. And it's very seldom that there is discussion in terms of can you create a solution for us. But in our case, 99% of our jobs are, hey, this is where we are going to operate. We need this flow meter, but these are the specifications that we know of what can be done. And most often we are the ones who then actually specify it for the clients too, right? That takes us in a space where we're talking about design to materials to which areas it is. It's Siberia, or is it the Sahara? All of that matters for us, right? So we talk about subsea meters. We make subsea meters which can go up to 3,000 meters below. We make products which operate in about 1,200 degree high temperatures, nuclear. All of that thinking happens here in the business. And when it comes to executing it, we have an assembly hall here where the assembly takes place. We have machine shops, which as a business can thrive as a machine shop. Some of the machines which we have here, you can actually have it as a machining business, comparing to some of the other businesses in the Cumbria. Our welding and fabrication facilities are probably among the best in the world from a knowledge perspective. And we have an excellent team of welders at the moment. And we have calibration facilities which could be used for calibrating small equipment to some very large equipment as well. All of which we use only towards our products. But the beauty of this is, if I do decide as a business to have them as separate businesses, all of these which I mentioned can survive as separate businesses. That is how knowledgeable our people are. The team which we acquired was a fantastic team back in 2018. But that's the beauty of the business. Where tradition meets modernity, you can see that in the business, right? Where that youthful exuberance, ambition meets experience, you can see that in this business too. And that's something which I'm very keen to preserve. And as much as I am a great believer of technology, and I've now myself jumped into AI as much as I can as a keen student, I wouldn't foresee changing this business to make it completely technology focused alone. The people element of this business is very, very important to me.
I had the privilege of attending an anniversary event of McMenon,
Yes.
And I have to say that absolutely chimes with what I saw real time at that event, because I was absolutely blown away by the collegiate culture, the camaraderie, the support of young to old, old to young. There was such a great atmosphere, such a great energy in the room, such a great culture, I would say, that I saw there, and you can't fake that. That was clearly real. And it was really impressive to see. It was wonderful to see.
Thank you, Miranda. Thank you. And we strive to keep that going. Of course, there are challenges where people move on, right? But that's okay, right? I tell myself, as long as it's for the right reasons, then people move on with the blessings of the business, and hoping that at some point our paths will cross as well. But whoever is in the business, it is a clear and present circumstance. They are part of that team. They are the most valuable member of that team. That is how we tend to view it. But with an eye on the future too. What can we do for them? How can they evolve? Because let's be frank. As an SME in the West Cumbrian space, another challenge we face is, of course, we're competing with the likes of Sellafield or BAE Systems. Even between them there is a competition in terms of getting the right kind of talent. And an SME, for us to compete with the likes of those businesses is a hard space to be in, right? So getting that right mix of people and technology for a business like us is absolutely critical. But hey, that's another challenge, and we just take challenges head on.
It's clear that that's the case. So I think to create a culture like that, to kind of keep growing this business, you have to have a strong leader. So let's hear a little bit about your leadership, about your choice in the first place of why did you want to come and acquire McMenon and run this business? Where's that come from?
I should say manufacturing chose me. I didn't start my career as in the manufacturing. I'm not an engineer, to be honest, but I found myself managing engineers for a livelihood for many years now. So manufacturing chose me, and this business in a way did choose me is how I feel, and that's my gratitude to the business. Some people have advised me, why are you taking it so personal? Hey, it's my business. I take it personal, right? And the people who work in the business, their welfare, then I should take it as personal, right? So that's how I see this business as. But just to go back in terms of how I ended up doing this, or how I started this, back in 2018, like I said, I acquired this business from ABB. Now there's a short story behind that too. So if you rewind further back to 2013-14, I used to lead this site working for ABB. I was the general manager of this site at that point of time. A very brief stint. I was here only for about a year. But during that time, sitting in the office I was sat at that time, I don't know for what reason, it just, there was a momentary thought in my head which said, wouldn't this business be better as a standalone business? It was nothing against the ownership, the corporate ownership, but it just felt like as a business and the location where this is, wouldn't it be better? I'm a strategic thinker, so these kind of thoughts come into your head. And I didn't give much further thought because I was employed by the business. Due to personal circumstances, I had to move on, and I returned back to Aberdeen, where I had moved from to come here and lead this business. I went and took over as the managing director for a group of companies in Aberdeen. And after a couple of years in that business, I wanted to do it myself. I wanted to start my own business with the thought of turnaround strategies and investments. That's how I started off McMenon in 2016. And at a couple of months into that, the very same thought which I had when I was at ABB, can that business be a standalone business, came back to my jogged my memory, and I that thought came back to me. And what did I do about it? I could have sat there thinking about, will a multinational company sell one of their businesses to me who has just started off, right? And I had all those thoughts, of course, but it didn't stop me. I said, hey, what am I going to lose? Let me make a few calls and see where it is, right? So I made those few calls. It's a journey. I don't think today is an opportunity for me to speak about that journey, but the essence of that journey is an individual who started off as a business in 2016, in 2018 managed to acquire a factory from a multinational corporation. So it is possible, right? These things happen, or you make it happen, right? So that's how I acquired this business, and I've been the CEO of this business since then. But I must also admit that the chief operations officer of the business, Shibby Bernard, she possibly plays a bigger role than I do in actually running this site and the factory. Because all the operations of the business is managed by Shibby Bernard. So she, to me, just slightly moving away from the topic, we have a Girls in Engineering Day. That is my brainchild, right? I thought we should be doing an event at McMenon which introduces engineering to school students, particularly girls. Nothing against boys, but I just wanted to do this. Because you have a lot of businesses around, but businesses like ours, which has so many capabilities in there, I thought it would be a good thing to have them. So every year we bring in girl students, once or 1 day or 2 days, depending on the number of students who sign up, and then we give them an introduction to engineering. But one of the reasons, one of the people who made me think about doing that was our chief operations officer, to see how she as an individual was able to very quickly adapt, coming from Aberdeen, doing a very successful career herself. She was in a very successful career herself, and I managed to poach her from what she was doing the best way possible. So she's not here because of her relationship to me, but because she's the best in the business to do this, right? So I was fortunate to have her. But to see how she very quickly adapted from a management mindset to an engineering and operations mindset, especially in a setup like that in Workington, to me was an eye-opener. And I could see how somebody from a different perspective was able to do this. And that motivated me to say, why can't we share this with other girls, the other women? And that's how the Girls in Engineering happened. Sorry for slightly
Absolutely.
moving away from your question, but in terms of leadership, it would be unfair for me to just take ownership of that leadership, right? Yes, vision, ambition, the drive behind, yes, of course, I play my part in that, supported my colleagues. But Shibi Bernard and her team of people are the ones who then give me the confidence to say, hey, you can go and do what you do what you are good at, while we manage this for us. So on an average, over 10,000 products are manufactured in this factory every year, right? Mm-hmm. And for that to go, I wouldn't say seamlessly, it has its own set of challenges. But without that team, it wouldn't happen. And manufacturing is a very honest business. I don't mean the other businesses are dishonest, but what I mean here is that you have to manufacture a product, and the product has to be in the shop floor. There's no other way. There's no faking it, right?
Yeah.
So in a way, that reflects some of the qualities I inherently have. So I think manufacturing found me is how I describe it as.
Really interesting story, and it's clear the pride that you have in this business and the people that work in it and run it. It's fantastic to hear also about your work with girls in engineering. iSH is about inclusive growth. Sure. And improving the West Cumbrian economy in particular, and helping some of those people who are not in work or who are in, on the pathway, on the career pathway, supporting them to grow, to develop the skills, to be able to be part of, industry in particular going forward, to grow technical skills. And engineering obviously is a key part of that. So it's great to hear that some of our local SMEs are also doing their bit. Yeah. I'm interested in how you got into different sectors. So you obviously operate internationally in a way that I think is quite unique, perhaps, in West Cumbria as well, the amount of international work you do, but also across different sectors. So was that something that existed before you took on the business, or has that grown? How has that changed?
Well, we were fortunate that we managed to acquire this business from a multinational corporation, right? So there was, to a large extent, there was some involvement in other sectors, but to a large extent it was the oil and gas, which till today exists. So LNG and oil is very much part of our business. Energy is our core business. We have then diversified into other sectors too. So what would have previously been, single point percentages, now would be a much higher rate as such. So there is a further acquisition which happened, which has helped us. So today we are still predominantly in the energy sector, but water business, that plays a big role now. Chemical sector, food and beverage, pharmaceuticals. The percentage of contributions from these has improved since the acquisition.
Amazing.
Which then moves to a question of, you haven't asked that question, but in my head, that's the question, what next? And I would say scale up. Scale up is my next challenge.
So what does scale up look like in practice?
I need to connect it with the original question which you asked me about the challenges. Mm-hmm. So scaling up in the UK at the moment is indeed a challenge because of the high cost base, right? I need to convince my clients that I can sell something to them at a price different from they are used to, right? It's the exact same product. Yes, the quality is there, but there's a price for that quality and the value clients attribute to it. And like I said, there are other countries who are contributing with equal quality as well, right? So from a scale-up point of view, there is that question in terms of, can that scale-up happen in the UK? Mm-hmm. Or should that scale-up happen outside the UK? Mm-hmm. Now we have around 65 people in the factory and totally about 80 people in the business, including our international footprint as such. I have made a promise to myself that business should go back to the 250 people in the next few years. That's the plan. Yeah. Can we do that in West Cumbria? Can we do that in the UK? It's a question we need to ask, and we need to take a practical approach to it. Mm-hmm. Ultimately, as a UK business, can we achieve that is another question to ask. If the answer is yes, as a UK business, we can achieve it, which my answer is yes, we can, absolutely. UK brand, McMenon as a growing business, we are going into those competitors' range. If they can do it, why can't we, right? But can that be done in the UK? Or should we be expanding? It's also a question to be asking. So that's the kind of questions we are asking at the moment in terms of scale-up. But the answer to the scale-up is a resounding yes. There is no two ways about it. McMenon is scaling up. McMenon is taking it to the next level. Where, how, and when are the pieces of the puzzle that we need to put together.
Very exciting times by the sounds of it, and it's clear that you have great ambition. And what is, your world like outside of work? Do you have any free time? How do you spend that free time if you have it?
I'm a family man. Mm-hmm. Wife and a kid. No longer a kid. He's 18 years old. He's doing engineering in Edinburgh.
Nice.
Focused on energy and environmental engineering. Recently, I found myself having some time in hand because for about 3 or 4 months I was traveling crazy, and then I come back to Cumbria, where nothing against Cumbria, but I feel like I do lead a retired life after about 6 p.m. When I get back home, it feels like, which if you're in Dubai, for example, it feels completely different.
Right.
So I was joking to somebody the other day. If somebody said, hey, would you like to buy a Ferrari? When I'm in Cumbria, my answer would be no. And when I'm in Dubai, my answer would be yes. Because there's a culture change, So after all these travels where I've been so busy doing things, I came back to Cumbria and I just all of a sudden felt that I have a lot of time in my hands. Mm-hmm. And with the son gone to the university as well. So talking about being reflective and learning, my recent activities have been, after dinner, spend a lot of time with AI.
Interesting.
Right? As a student, asking probing questions, asking challenging questions without fear of being judged. Right? Doesn't come back to say that's a stupid question, right?
Yeah.
But I focus, slightly changing topics now, but I focus on the questions you can ask of AI. Because from a business point of view, that's more important. We all know that AI is happening, right? It's already happened. Mm-hmm. How can that help my business? This is my thinking. So instead of trying to be the CEO and command the AI to do things, I'm being a student and trying to learn from the vast resources out there, right? So if you actually look at the data which is available, it would be like an iceberg, right? The data on what is visible is most often the data you are working with, and what is not visible is down there. But do you really need to know all that data? How great would it be if somebody just worked on that data, summarized it for you as the key points? And as a leader in the business, if that somebody can do that for me, it's great. And I can see AI doing that for me, right? So as of now, I'm a student of AI, asking all the kind of questions I can ask of AI to see how it can contribute to the future. So that's how I spend my time in the evenings nowadays, I should say.
Wow, I wasn't expecting that, but it's clear that you're forever a student, forever learning from everything that you do, and it's super impressive. Thank you so much, Anand, for giving us a little window into your world. We've got so much to be proud of here at McMenon Engineering, and it's great to have such an insightful leader in this region as well to learn from, and I hope that lots of businesses listen to this podcast and take a lot away from it. Thank you.